CBS's biggest NFL shock just got even worse. Nobody expected one of the biggest faces in NFL broadcasting to disappear overnight. But that's exactly where this story begins. Tony Romo wasn't just another former quarterback calling games. He was CBS's highest-paid NFL analyst, a voice fans had heard during Super Bowls, playoff classics, and some of the league's biggest moments now. Just weeks before another NFL season is ready to kick off, everything has changed in the blink of an eye. An unexpected arrest, a sudden leave of absence, a replacement already sitting beside Jim Nantz, and behind it all, whispers that the real problems may have started long before any police report ever surfaced. For years, Tony Romo and Jim Nantz were presented as the gold standard of NFL broadcasting. Their chemistry helped define CBS's coverage, while Romo's ability to break down defenses before the snap made him one of the most talked about analysts in football. But in recent months, cracks had reportedly begun to appear beneath the surface. Critics questioned his performances. Media insiders suggested the partnership wasn't nearly as strong as viewers believed. Then, one unexpected incident pushed every rumor into the national spotlight. CBS responded with only a brief statement, confirming that Romo had been placed on leave until further notice. No timeline, no detailed explanation, no guarantee about when or even if he would return to the network's one broadcast booth, almost immediately. Former NFL superstar J. Watt stepped into Romo's seat alongside legendary play-by-play announcer Jim Nantz, creating even more speculation about what CBS may truly be planning behind closed doors. Was this simply a temporary move while Romo deals with legal issues? Or has one of the most valuable jobs in sports television suddenly become available? As reporters, former players, and millions of NFL fans debate what happens next, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. This story is no longer just about an arrest. It's about trust, reputation, enormous contracts, and the uncertain future of one of football's most recognizable broadcast teams. Before we uncover what really happened inside CBS and why so many insiders believe this controversy runs much deeper than anyone first realized, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Let us know your city, state, or country in the comments below. If you believe Tony Romo deserves another chance after everything that's happened, press him. If you think CBS should move forward with a new broadcast team, press dois. And if you enjoy in-depth NFL stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next exclusive report. CBS says almost nothing, and that makes everything worse. CBS did not need a long statement to create a massive storm. In fact, the network's decision to say almost nothing may have made the situation even more explosive. The official message was short. Tony Romo had been placed on leave until further notice. That was all. No return date. No explanation of what standards would determine his future. No direct statement about whether his position remains secure. For a company managing one of the most recognizable voices in football, the silence felt louder than any press conference could have. That silence immediately created two competing versions of the story. Publicly, CBS appeared cautious and serious, clearly aware that the allegations surrounding Romo could damage the network's reputation. Privately, reports suggested executives did not view the incident as something that would automatically end his career. Some sources described the situation as a serious lapse in judgment, but not necessarily a fireable offense. That contradiction became the heart of the drama. If Romo's job was truly safe, why would CBS refuse to say so? And if the network still believed in him, why was there no clear timeline for his return? The answer may be more complicated than simple damage control. CBS is not only dealing with a legal controversy, it is also protecting its NFL brand, its broadcast partners, its sponsors, and one of the most expensive talent contracts in sports media. Every word matters. A strong defense of Romo could look reckless before the legal process plays out. A harsh public statement could weaken the network's position if it later decides to bring him back. So CBS chose the safest corporate strategy: say as little as possible and create room for every option. But that strategy carries a cost. When a network refuses to provide clarity, fans and reporters fill the empty space themselves. Social media quickly turned the leave into a possible firing. Critics demanded permanent change. Supporters argued Romo deserved due process and a chance to respond. Others began asking whether CBS had already been unhappy with his work and was now using the controversy as an opportunity to reconsider the entire booth. The uncertainty became even more intense because the NFL season was approaching. This was not happening in February, when CBS had months to make quiet decisions. It was happening while schedules, broadcast teams, preseason assignments, and Week 1 plans were being finalized. Jim Nantz needed a partner. Producers needed chemistry. The network needed stability. Instead, it had a public relations crisis with no visible end date. That is why the phrase "until further notice" became so important. It did not sound like a short suspension. It sounded like an open door to a much bigger decision. Romo was not fired, but he was no longer guaranteed anything. And while CBS remained silent, another name was already moving into the center of the story. J. Watt steps in and suddenly Romo looks replaceable. The moment J. Watt was announced as Tony Romo's replacement, the story changed completely. If CBS had selected a low-profile backup analyst for a temporary assignment, the move might have looked routine. But Watt is not a routine substitute. He is one of the most respected defensive players of his generation, a future Hall of Famer, and a personality who already commands attention whenever he appears on television. That made his arrival beside Jim Nantz feel less like emergency coverage and more like an audition. Watt brings something CBS desperately needs right now: credibility without controversy. He understands modern NFL defenses, communicates with energy, and has the name recognition required for the network's top broadcast team. He also represents a fresh start. While Romo's reputation has become increasingly tied to criticism, contract debates, and questions about preparation, Watt arrives without years of accumulated frustration from viewers. The opportunity could not be more significant. Sitting beside Jim Nantz is not just another television assignment. It is one of the most important seats in American sports broadcasting. That booth handles major regular season games, playoff matchups, and Super Bowls. Whoever succeeds there becomes part of the weekly NFL experience for millions of viewers. Watt is now receiving a chance that many analysts spend years trying to earn. For Romo, that creates a dangerous situation. His future may not depend only on the legal process or CBS's internal review. It may also depend on how well Watt performs. If the new partnership sounds natural, if fans respond positively, and if ratings remain strong, CBS may discover that the transition is easier than expected. A temporary replacement can become permanent very quickly when the audience embraces the change. There is also the issue of contract. Romo's style is spontaneous, emotional, and often unpredictable. That energy helped make him famous, but it also became the source of criticism. Watt may bring a more measured approach, especially from a defensive perspective, if he appears prepared, concise, and comfortable with Nantz. Every successful broadcast could increase pressure on Romo. CBS does not have to publicly call this an audition. The network can continue describing Watt as a temporary solution while privately evaluating every detail. Producers will watch his timing. Executives will study audience reaction. Advertisers will notice whether the controversy begins to fade. Nantz's chemistry with Watt will be examined almost as closely as the games themselves. That is why Romo's leave is so much more dangerous than an ordinary suspension. His chair is not empty. It is occupied by someone with enough talent and popularity to keep it. And the longer Romo remains away, the more normal that new picture may begin to feel. The $180 million contract complicates everything. Tony Romo's future cannot be discussed without confronting the enormous contract hanging over every CBS decision. Reports have placed the value of his long-term agreement at roughly $180 million. With the deal extending through 2030, that contract once symbolized his incredible rise from retired quarterback to broadcasting superstar. Now it may be the biggest obstacle standing between CBS and a clean solution. When Romo first entered the booth, the investment made sense. He was different from every other analyst. He predicted plays before the snap, identified defensive pressure, and explained quarterback decisions in real time. Fans treated his broadcasts like a football classroom. CBS believed it had discovered the next great voice of the sport and paid him accordingly. But massive contracts create massive expectations at nearly $18 million per year. Romo cannot simply be judged as a former player learning television. He is paid like the centerpiece of an entire broadcast operation. Every mistake becomes more noticeable. Every criticism becomes connected to his salary. When viewers believe he sounds unprepared, talks over key moments, or relies too heavily on excitement, the conversation quickly turns to whether CBS is receiving value for its investment. The contract also limits the network's flexibility. Firing Romo could create serious financial consequences. Depending on the exact language of the agreement, demoting him would raise questions about why CBS is paying top-level money for a lower-level role. Keeping him in the know. One booth could invite continued criticism, especially if J. Watt performs well in his absence. That leaves CBS trapped between business reality and public perception. The network may believe the controversy will eventually pass. Romo could return, apologize, rebuild trust, and continue working beside Nantz. From a financial perspective, that may be the simplest path, but the legal situation is only one part of the problem. The criticism of his broadcasting existed long before the arrest. The network now has to decide whether it is protecting a valuable talent or protecting an expensive mistake. Romo's contract also creates emotional tension inside the industry. Other broadcasters spend decades building their careers and never receive anything close to that figure. Romo moved directly from the Cowboys to the top CBS booth without working through lower assignments. That fast rise already created resentment in some corners. Every difficult broadcast now gives critics another reason to say the network overpaid. Still, CBS cannot allow money alone to make the decision. A contract can protect someone's employment, but it cannot protect chemistry, credibility, or audience trust. Romo may remain financially secure, yet still lose the role that made the contract valuable in the first place. That distinction is now more important than ever. The Romo-Nantz partnership was already cracking. The most uncomfortable part of this story is that the trouble may not have started with the arrest at all. Long before Tony Romo was placed on leave, questions were already being raised about his partnership with Jim Nantz. On television, they remain CBS's top NFL team, behind the polished introductions and familiar voices. However, reports suggested the relationship was no longer operating with the same trust it once had. That possibility changes the meaning of everything happening now. When Romo first joined CBS, his chemistry with Nantz appeared effortless. Nantz provided the calm structure. Romo brought unpredictability, excitement, and quarterback insight. One voice guided the broadcast while the other seemed to see the future. The contrast worked. They were celebrated as one of the most entertaining pairings in football. But successful partnerships evolve, and sometimes they begin to weaken in ways viewers can hear before anyone publicly admits it. Romo's style became more scattered. His predictions were less impressive when they were wrong. He sometimes rushed into moments that needed silence. Critics argued that Nantz increasingly had to control the pace, redirect conversation, or carry more of the broadcast. Media reporters went further, suggesting that the trust once connecting the two men had eroded. That is a far more serious allegation than simply saying an analyst had a bad game. Trust is the foundation of live television. Each broadcaster must know when the other will speak, when to step back, and how to recover when something unexpected happens. If that rhythm disappears, even experienced voices can sound disconnected. Nantz repeatedly defended Romo. He called him a close friend, praised their chemistry, and rejected reports that the partnership was in trouble. Those statements may have been completely sincere. Personal loyalty and professional frustration can exist at the same time. Nantz may genuinely care about Romo while also recognizing that the booth has become harder to manage. The repeated defenses created another problem. Every time Nantz insisted everything was fine, the question returned, why does he need to keep saying it? Strong partnerships usually speak through the work. When the public explanation becomes a recurring storyline, people begin to wonder whether the explanation itself is part of the damage control. The arrest did not create those questions. It simply forced CBS to confront them at the worst possible moment. What had previously been a quiet debate about preparation and chemistry became connected to a major public controversy. Now, every old criticism feels more important. Every report about tension appears more believable. And every successful minute J. Watt spends beside Nantz could make the old partnership harder to restore. From broadcast genius to a target of criticism, Tony Romo's broadcasting career began like a Hollywood story. He retired from football and immediately became one of the most exciting analysts on television. There was no long apprenticeship, no quiet climb through regional games, and no years spent waiting for a major assignment. CBS placed him directly beside Jim Nantz, And Romo responded by doing something viewers had rarely seen before. He told them what was coming. Before the ball was snapped, Romo identified blitzes, predicted routes, and explained how quarterbacks would attack a defense. His enthusiasm felt natural. His football knowledge sounded fresh. Fans praised him for making complicated strategy understandable. For a time, it seemed CBS had found a broadcasting genius, but the same qualities that created his popularity eventually became weaknesses. Predictions are impressive when they are correct. When they are wrong, they become distracting. Excitement is valuable when it enhances a moment. When it never stops, it can become exhausting. Romo's spontaneous style began to attract criticism for sounding unstructured, overly emotional, or insufficiently prepared. Some viewers felt he was reacting instead of analyzing. Others accused him of forcing references to certain star quarterbacks into games where those players were not involved. The criticism intensified during major playoff broadcasts, where every word receives national attention. Pauses, unfinished thoughts, unusual noises, and missed opportunities became social media clips. A style once celebrated as authentic started being described as careless. Romo had not necessarily changed overnight, but the audience had changed its expectations. That is the danger of becoming famous for something new. The first time viewers hear it, they are amazed. The 100th time, they begin noticing the flaws. Media critics questioned whether Romo was doing enough preparation. Reports surfaced that CBS had held serious evaluation meetings with him. Although the network rejected descriptions of those meetings as an intervention, executives insisted that discussions with on-air talent were normal. But the fact that the story existed at all showed how far public perception had shifted. Romo was no longer judged as an exciting newcomer. He was judged as one of the highest-paid broadcasters in sports. That meant preparation, clarity, and consistency mattered as much as personality. The contract raised the standard, while years of exposure removed the element of surprise. His current crisis therefore lands on top of a career already under pressure. The arrest may have placed him on leave, but dissatisfaction with his broadcasting created the environment in which viewers were ready to imagine CBS moving on. The man once considered impossible to replace suddenly looked vulnerable, not because he had lost all his talent, but because the magic no longer protected him from scrutiny. Jim Nantz keeps defending him, but why does he have to? Jim Nantz has never been casual when defending Tony Romo. Each time criticism grows, Nantz responds with loyalty, emotion, and certainty. He has described Romo as a close friend. He has praised their chemistry. He has argued that critics misunderstand what makes Romo unique. At different moments, he has suggested that negative reporting was unfair, exaggerated, or driven by an agenda. Those defenses matter because Nantz is not just another coworker. He is one of the most respected voices in American sports television. He has called Super Bowls, the Masters, and major college basketball moments. When Nantz speaks publicly about his partner, people inside the industry listen. But his repeated support also creates a difficult question. Why has the same defense been necessary so many times? If the Romo partnership were universally successful, there would be no yearly debate about chemistry, preparation, or performance. Nantz would not need to explain what viewers cannot hear. The fact that he has repeatedly defended Romo suggests that the criticism is not disappearing. It returns because enough people continue noticing the same problems. Nantz's loyalty can be interpreted in several ways. The most generous explanation is also the simplest. He believes in his friend. Live broadcasting creates an intense bond. Partners travel together, prepare together, and survive unpredictable moments together. Nantz may view attacks on Romo as attacks on the entire team. There is also a professional reason to defend him. Publicly admitting tension would damage the broadcast before the next game even began. Every silence would be analyzed. Every disagreement would become evidence. By presenting unity, Nantz protects the product, the network, and himself, yet loyalty can only do so much. It cannot erase viewer reaction, it cannot silence connected reporters, and it cannot guarantee that CBS executives share the same confidence. The current controversy places Nantz in an especially difficult position. Defending Romo's broadcasting is one thing. Addressing a legal matter is something else entirely. Nantz must support a longtime partner, without appearing to dismiss the seriousness of the allegations. He must also build chemistry with J. Watt while avoiding the impression that he has already moved on. That balancing act may reveal more than any interview. If Nantz sounds comfortable with Watt, fans will immediately compare the new booth to the old one. If the partnership succeeds, CBS will have proof that its flagship voice can work with someone else. Nantz may remain loyal to Romo personally while becoming part of the process that makes Romo professionally replaceable. Sometimes the strongest defense cannot stop change. It can only delay the moment when a difficult decision becomes unavoidable. Insiders tell a different story from CBS. While CBS and Jim Nantz continued presenting a picture of stability, reporters covering the sports media industry described something far less comfortable. Their version was not simply that Tony Romo had experienced a few weak broadcasts, it was that the network's most important NFL booth had developed deeper structural problems. According to media analysis cited in the original reporting, concerns included preparation, trust, and Romo's level of engagement during games. One description suggested that the confidence once connecting Nantz and Romo was no longer present. Another argued that Romo sometimes appeared disconnected from the broadcast around him. These observations were especially damaging because they came from people with experience covering network television, not just angry fans posting during a playoff game. The reports also raised questions about how CBS producers were managing the booth. Some analysts believed the network had begun structuring broadcasts so Nantz could carry more of the early action while Romo settled into the game. That may sound like a small production choice, but it would reveal something significant. A network does not redesign the rhythm of its top team unless it believes the existing rhythm needs protection. CBS publicly rejected dramatic descriptions of internal meetings, insisting that evaluation conversations were normal. That explanation is reasonable. Major networks regularly review performance, but normal evaluations do not usually become national stories unless insiders believe something important happened. The difference between the public and private narratives is what makes this chapter of the controversy so powerful. Publicly, Romo remained a valued star. Privately, there appeared to be concern about whether he was still performing like one. Publicly, Nantz described the relationship as strong. Privately, reporters discussed a trust deficit. Publicly, CBS defended routine operations. Privately, the network may have been adjusting the broadcast around a problem it did not want to acknowledge. None of this proves that Nantz and Romo disliked each other or that CBS had already decided to remove him. Professional relationships are rarely that simple. Two people can be friends and still struggle on air. A network can value an employee while questioning whether he belongs in the same role. Producers can support a broadcaster while developing backup plan. The arrest forced those hidden tensions into the open. CBS could no longer treat performance criticism as an off-season media debate. It now had to remove Romo from the booth and place another high-profile analyst beside Nantz. The network's private concerns, whatever their true extent, suddenly became connected to a real-world test. J. Watt would not merely replace Romo, he would give CBS data. The network could compare chemistry, preparation, audience reaction, and overall control of the broadcast. What insiders had discussed quietly could now be evaluated in front of millions of viewers. CBS now faces a decision it can no longer avoid. CBS can delay Tony Romo's return, but it cannot delay the final decision forever. At some point, the network must choose what its top NFL broadcast team will look like moving forward. Every available option carries risk, and none allows CBS to return completely to the world that existed before the controversy. The first option is to restore Romo beside Jim Nantz. That would protect the original partnership and preserve the enormous investment CBS made in him. It would also send a message that the network believes one incident should not automatically destroy a career, especially before the legal process is complete. But bringing him back without a clear accountability plan could create public backlash and renew every complaint about his broadcasting. The second option is to keep J. Watt in the top booth. That path may become increasingly attractive if Watt performs well. He offers credibility, freshness, and the possibility of building a new identity around CBS's NFL coverage, but replacing Romo permanently could create financial complications and invite questions about whether the network used the legal controversy to solve an existing performance problem. A third option would involve restructuring the entire lineup. CBS could move Romo to a different team, reduce his assignments, or create a three-person booth. It could also consider pairing Watt with another play-by-play announcer while keeping Nantz in place. Each variation would allow the network to claim it is evolving rather than punishing. Yet viewers would still understand the message. Romo's position had changed. The legal outcome will influence the decision, but it may not control it. Even if Romo avoids the most serious consequences, CBS must consider reputation, preparation, chemistry, and audience trust. Employment decisions in television are not made only in courtrooms. They are made through ratings, sponsor relationships, internal évaluation, and the confidence executives have in what viewers will accept. Romo also has control over part of what happens next. Accountability could matter, a sincere response, responsible conduct, and a clear effort to rebuild trust may create a path back. Silence may protect him legally, but eventually the public will expect more than a corporate statement. The most important factor, however, may be the performance of his replacement. If Watt struggles, CBS will feel pressure to restore experience. If Watt thrives, the network may realize that change is not only possible but popular. That is the decision CBS can no longer avoid. This is no longer simply about whether Tony Romo keeps a paycheck. It is about whether he keeps the identity, influence, and prestige that came with the No. 1 booth. His contract may survive. His friendship with Nantz may survive. But his position as one of the defining voices of the NFL is now less certain than at any other moment in his broadcasting career. What this crisis means for Romo, CBS, and the future. Tony Romo's crisis is bigger than one arrest, one suspension, or one controversial season in the broadcast booth. It is a warning about what happens when reputation, money, loyalty, and performance all collide at the same time. CBS is not simply deciding whether Romo should return to work. The network is deciding what matters most when a valuable partnership begins to lose public trust. Strategically, CBS must separate three different issues. The first is the legal process, which should be allowed to move forward without premature conclusions. The second is professional accountability, including how Romo responds and whether he takes responsibility for the situation. The third is broadcasting performance, which existed as a concern long before this controversy. Combining all three into one emotional decision would be easy, but it would not necessarily be fair or intelligent. Romo's contract gives him financial security, but money cannot guarantee relevance. His friendship with Jim Nantz may remain strong, but friendship cannot guarantee chemistry forever, and his past success may earn him another opportunity, but it cannot permanently protect him from evaluation. In professional sports and television, every position must eventually be justified by current performance, not only by past accomplishments. The same lesson applies to CBS. Silence may reduce legal risk, but it can also allow speculation to control the story. The network needs clarity, consistency, and a process that treats everyone fairly. If Romo returns, viewers should understand why. If J. Watt remains in the booth, CBS should make that decision based on performance rather than public anger. A responsible organization should never turn accountability into humiliation, but it should also never allow loyalty or money to replace standards. There is also a human lesson here. One serious mistake should not automatically erase an entire career. But forgiveness does not mean avoiding consequences. People deserve the chance to learn, rebuild trust, and demonstrate change. At the same time, public figures must understand that their choices affect coworkers, families, employers, and millions of people who watch them. Romo's next chapter will depend on what he does. After the headlines fade, CBS's reputation will depend on whether it responds with fairness instead of panic. And the future of the booth may depend on whether Watt proves that a new direction is already possible. Where do you stand? Press 1 if you believe Tony Romo deserves a carefully managed second chance. Press 2 if you believe CBS should permanently move in a new direction. Share your opinion respectfully in the comments, and tell us where you are watching from. For more in-depth NFL stories, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, share this video with another football fan, and hit the like button to support our next report.